The other thing, of course, the next thing on my list is really, really important, and I feel like you can't get around trying to save money on this one. It's your mic choice. Like, the mic is really, really important, actually. So if you're going to spend, I would say if you're going to spend like the most money, you probably want to spend it on a mic.
Even with audio or even with video, right? Like, we might have like perfect video, but if the audio is garbage, no one's going to watch. Versus maybe a video that's not perfect, it's serviceable, but the audio is awesome, like people will watch. Audio is critical, even when it comes to video itself. And for whatever it's worth, Josh, I mean, just to set some context here, you edit podcasts, you edit audio. This is what you do. So like, you're not just like looking at a list on Wikipedia here. This is like, you've been steeped in this for eons, right? So you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, I worked in radio for like 10 years and then worked in podcasting for like 8 years after that. And as an editor, I can tell you, like, a lot of the stuff I get, they're not following my list of tips. And I try so hard. Like, this is the ideal. So this is the ideal list of things that I would love people to do. Not everyone does all these things. And also, just to make it clear, even if I try to be as perfect as I can at the beginning of this podcast, all of my stuff conked out on me for reasons I don't understand, because I basically have, my mixer is a computer that's interfacing with another computer, and things can go wrong. So like, don't expect if you spend lots of money on things, it's gonna just make everything better, because it introduces new problems, basically. So be patient and, try to take things as they come. Try not to get too frustrated. But anyway, your mic choice, though, is very important. I was going to say there's two choices that you basically have in the world of podcasting when you're looking for microphones: dynamic and condenser. Condenser microphones are much more sensitive. They will pick up the room a whole lot more. So that's where the room treatment is very important. And Chris's room is perfect because he's got so much stuff in there to absorb sound. Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, you don't have to buy any panels, Chris. You've got like, you're constantly making more absorption material on a daily basis.
Vader sucks the air out of the room.
That's exactly right. You got, Surprised you have any sound in there to begin with, actually. But yeah, exactly. So I would choose, personally, I like dynamic microphones better. So in a lot of cases, condenser microphones can be fine, but I think if you're not dealing with a perfect environment, dynamic is the way to go, because they're less sensitive, so you actually need to get closer to the mic to get best results. But that's a good thing if you're podcasting and you're not too worried about a microphone being in your shot, as I am right now. Because if you're closer to the mic, it's going to pick up less of the room. So anything going on in the background, you're not going to hear as much. So that's actually a benefit. And then there's also the USB versus XLR conversation, which I know it's very easy to go USB. That's plug and play. You can, exactly. Chris did it. Toxic did it. Glenn didn't it. That's an XLR mic though, right?
No, this one is not. It's USB.
Oh, okay. What one is that? Is that the Shure? Is that a Shure?
This is the Beacon.
Oh, it's a Beacon. Okay.
Yep.
See, that's the one I switched from, because it was taking up too many CPU cycles, and honestly, the software is kind of kludgy after having it for about a year, and I ended up switching to the Rode NT USB Plus.
Yeah.
On the desk. So he switched from this mic to that mic, and I switched from that mic to this mic. It's weird how we transposed. It's interesting.
Well,
it played out that way.
It's working for Glenn, and it wasn't working for you. It just depends on a lot of factors when it comes to that. I personally like XLR mics though better, because I like to separate the two components, like to have a USB interface that I can get separately from the microphone.
Well, that's the thing, is that USB microphones will often they'll run into other issues because the bus is underpowered, or there are too many other devices that are siphoning power from the bus. And so you end up having other issues, which is one of the reasons why I ended up moving away from the Beacon mic, is I was trying to minimize. I ran into I did a couple of videos, and the audio just had all these random pops and crackles, and I opted to go back to the Rode, or go back to a Rode after having the Rode Mini USB. This is the USB Plus, so it's a little larger, but minimizing or eliminating any kind of software, and being very mindful of what was running on the system at any given time to lower the CPU overhead. I've generally not had after doing that, had too many issues with USB mics over the years, and I've been using them since the AT2020, like over a decade ago.
Oh, AT2020 was another one I was going to suggest in terms of like mics that you can look at, because if you're looking at USB mics, I like the Rode Pod mic. I like the one you just got, the NT
Plus.
What is it?
USB Plus. Yeah, it's a USB Plus.
I thought because that Glendon, that Beacon mic, they clearly took design cues from Shure.
Yeah, it looks like an SM7B.
Yeah,
I mean,
it looks like an SM7B. They actually have an MV7, which is a USB equivalent to that, which I think is a pretty good one. And then Audio-Technica, I believe the AT2040 is a dynamic mic, actually. I think the AT2020 is a condenser. And I was looking.
What happens if you get a condenser mic and it starts expanding? Is that normal?
Really dangerous. Like, you need to get out ASAP.
Yeah, throw it outside.
You need to throw it outside.
Okay.
Might
Just making
explode.
sure.
So I was right. The AT2040 is a dynamic mic. That's probably why I put it on my list. But the 2020 is good too, but just be mindful of your environment. If you have a lot of noise and you're not using something like StreamYard like we are right now, you might be combating some of that in post, more so than a dynamic mic would do. And then as far as XLR mics, I absolutely love the Electro Voice RE20. This is like the broadcast industry standard. This has been in every radio studio I've ever been in my career. And then the Shure SM7B, which we were just talking about, is another really popular podcast mic. Both of those, they have slightly different sounds to them. I want to say the Shure SM7B is more like, it has more of a, this is really hard to explain in words, but like it just has a different sound. They both sound different, and depending on your voice, when you use it, if you try it, you'll know like, oh yeah, I like how I sound in this versus the other, and you might have your opinion that way. But both of those microphones are very expensive though. This one is $450. The SM7B is $400, so that's kind of pricey. There are lesser expensive alternatives. Electro Voice actually makes an RE320, which looks identical to this one, and I guess they made it cheaper. I think that one's like $330, so it's a little bit less. And then if you're really on, and then Shure has another one, the MV7X, which I believe is a cheaper alternative to the SM7B as well. But if you're really on a budget, I have to say the SM58, which is like the microphone you see at concerts that, you know, musicians are using live on stage, actually works really well in studios too. If you have like a stand for it, it's like $100 microphone, and if you plug it into, you know, a Scarlett Focusrite interface or something, it's pretty much like 90% of the way toward an SM7B. So you can save some money in doing that as well. That gets me to the next thing, USB interface or using an actual standalone recorder, because there are like recorders as well. And I actually like to use the recorders because I'm typically suggesting them for other people that are podcasting and don't have the computer know-how to, like, I don't trust them running software to keep things working right. I'll end up with nothing being recorded, which is obviously not good. So Zoom makes some affordable options, but I have to say I'm like really disappointed with their quality control lately. I don't know what's going on. Like, I've had a lot of issues with their recorders, unfortunately. I'm using a Rode Rodecaster Pro 2, and I actually have the original Rodecaster Pro as well, and they both work really well. Those aren't perfect either. I've had, if you're depending on the recording on the SD card, sometimes I get like little skips here and there, which is not ideal. So again, I actually like redundancy. I like to record on a hardware external recorder and on a computer or something like that. I just think that's, you know, I've had too many lost recordings to not have backups these days.
Yeah. I carried at one point back in the early days of podcasting, I think even before it was in iTunes, way back then, I ended up using a Marantz. I want to say it's a huge chunky thing. Huge. Yeah. I remember, and I think, why is this thing so damn big? It's huge.
If you want to go like the high end, I actually would be curious, because, you know, everybody tries to make these lists with like, well, if you're on a budget and you want to do the cheapest thing, I'm kind of curious about doing like a list of like, money is no option. Let's just dive, you know, the sky is the limit, right? Because
might as well.
Because there's also like, and this isn't even really sky's the limit. This is just a lot more expensive than the Zoom or the Rodecaster even. But sound devices make some great quality hardware recorders too. The Mix Pre's are really nice. So you could look at those if you have the money for them, but I don't blame you if you don't. So, I mean, and then of course you've got like, the other thing I was going to mention is services like this to record podcasts. StreamYard is great.